Let's do this.
Unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, rock stars of the Kick-Ass Nation. Hello, it is I, Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach, the host here on the Raw and Unscripted show, and I'm excited to be here with you, as I always am on Tuesday nights, live, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I know a lot of you people listen to it on podcast all over the world. Thank you very much. But I actually do a live video cast every Tuesday night that is broadcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all sorts of other places. We host it on Instagram as well. So in case you ever want to join the conversation wherever you're at, we would love to have you, because this is a conversation with you, not at you, and you're always welcome to join the conversation and ask questions and participate with us in the chat. It's always a good time that we have going on here. We have Robert in the house already. He says, hi, Christopher. That's Mr. Believe in Yourself. Thank you, Robert. Robert Broker is a staunch supporter of the show up in Canada. Thank you, brother. I think it's Toronto. So we appreciate you joining us. And I'm just excited to be here tonight. As of the broadcast of the show, it is December 17th. I got to make sure I get that right. December 17th, 2024. We're winding out the year. And when you wind down the year in your life, let's just get right into it. One of the things I'm doing in my group coaching program, I'm doing with my coaching clients, is we recap 2024. We take a look back on the year and we look at the goals we set for ourselves, which you should be keeping track. We look at the goals we set for ourselves. What did we do to achieve them? Right? And you think about, what was the winning combination of the things that I did to achieve my goals? It took discipline. It took dedication. It took accountability. It took making sure that I had my resources available in order to accomplish that goal. It took time management. It took organizational. Okay, maybe there were some goals that I didn't achieve. What were some of the reasons behind that? Why didn't I achieve my goal? Maybe it wasn't a big enough goal. Maybe I was too much to take on in one bite. Maybe that's something we can break down into different subsections. But I encourage you in your life right now, take a look at the things that you accomplished, take a look at the things you didn't accomplish, and make a battle plan for what it is that you're going to do in 2025, because this is the time to be writing down your goals. And I encourage you to think about 3 personal goals and 3 professional or career goals, right? So you think about a total of 6 goals in 12 months. That is completely achievable. And when you apply the SMART principle to your goal setting technique, make sure it's specific, make sure it's measurable, make sure it's achievable, make sure it is realistic, make sure it's time-based. It's pretty incredible what it is that you can accomplish in 12 months. And the best part of it is when you're doing 3 personal goals and 3 career goals, that's something that can keep you motivated and excited, because obviously, usually everybody's goal is to make more money or to grow their business or to grow their career. And usually one of their goals is something health-based. So when you incorporate all those together and you are dedicated to that and you hold yourself accountable, which is one of the key things, you start to see results. And as you start to see results, you start to feel better. You start to feel better. You start to grow your confidence, and you start to think, hey, I can do this. What else have I been putting off? What else have I been afraid of? What else have I thought was going to be too big? But that key thing in there is accountability. And that's something that I offer you guys. So if you guys have been listening to the show, you guys know I have a group accountability coaching program. This is the best gift you can possibly give yourself. Not anything materialistic. You can invest in this group accountability coaching program. It is less than what most people spend on coffee a month. I made it so affordable so that the people that can't afford to work with me one-on-one have this opportunity to be in a group accountability coaching program. We meet twice a month. It's phenomenal what it is that you get. We have a private Facebook group page. We have a private Facebook message chat. We have accountability partners, on and on and on. And we just did a recap of what people accomplished in 2024. And I was blown away that each one of the participants was saying, and going on and going on and going on and going on. And I'm like, have you ever in your life achieved so much in one year? And everybody astoundingly said no. So that accountability, showing up every single time with your accountability partner every single week, and then showing up to the meetings and participating and doing the homework that I assign you, you grow and you grow and you grow. And every single one of them said, I'm excited for 2025 because there are some things that I put off that I'm excited to share. And on our next meeting, we're going to be talking about those goals, those 3 career goals and those 3 personal goals. And we're going to be talking, okay, what is it that you need to accomplish those, and setting out that battle plan so that at the end of 2025, when we meet again, they're going to look back and they're going to be like, holy shit, I accomplished more stuff. So you can do that, or you could sit there and think that you're going to do it on your own. And I can tell you from personal experience, I would not be sitting here in front of you today, having left a very successful corporate job to do my coaching, to do my speaking, to do my podcasting, to write my books, and do all those things, had I not had a coach myself. Had I not have mentors myself. I have a mentor that I meet with every single week. I have a coach that I meet with on an occasional basis at this point. I have another mentor I meet with about once a month, and I have another guy that I meet with about once a quarter in person. And so I had those accountability people saying, hey, Chris, you said your book was going to be done. Hey, Chris, you said you're going to do this. Hey, Chris, I encourage you to change your podcast. I have people pushing me, the No Excuses coach, to grow and to change and to continue to push myself in different directions. And I've mentioned it a few times, my book. Many of you keep asking me, like, Chris, you said your book was going to be out last year. You said your book was going to be out this year. As I've shared with you, I had editor issues, but I've had the editor that I have now, and she just handed me the final manuscript for me to go through and look at her edits. So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this book will be coming out first part of next year. And it is going to be a game changer. I'm so excited for the changes that I've already seen her make. Nothing super huge, but this book will in fact impress upon you that whatever you have gone through in your particular journey, no matter what guilt, shame, regret, frustration, negative self-talk, anything you have in your life, you will be able to overcome it by reading this book. This is my memoir, but it also is a personal development book. It is a roadmap for you to find a new way of seeing your past, present, and your future. And if you go to itsjustyouyouandmekid.com, itsjustyouyouandmekid.com, you can see a synopsis of the book. And if you just put your name and your email in there, you will become a part of a group that will help me make it a #1 bestseller. And when you do that, you will get a bunch of extras. For me, I know when I read a book, I always have questions. Whatever happened to this person? I wish they had gone deeper on this. What would you think of this? And So I think about that. I don't know if you guys go through that, but in this particular book, I am going to offer like a master class to everybody. I want to probably do it twice. So anybody who reads the book, I'm going to give you guys about a month to read the book. And then we're going to have this master class. And then you can ask me any questions about what it is that I did. And I will coach you in that particular class. And I will also share stories that did not make it in the book, because originally the book was 178,000 words and I had to pare it down to about 124,000. So there's a lot of stuff that I had to cut out that are pretty important and pretty cool stories, pretty tough stories to share, to be vulnerable. But again, I want to offer you that in exchange for you making a bestseller on the day that it comes out. So there's a bunch of other extras. I think there's going to be a raffle for free coaching. There's a bunch of other things. I can't remember exactly what it is, but just go to itsjustyouyouandmekid.com. You can see a snippet of what it is that it's about, and you can help me make it a bestseller. So thank you very much for that. And without any further ado, I had the opportunity to be on this gentleman's podcast. I can't remember exactly when, because I'm on a lot of podcasts, but it was sometime this year. And I had such a great time having a conversation with this gentleman. I got to learn about him, and I got to learn about his particular journey because he sent me his ebook. And stay tuned to the end of the podcast, because there's going to be something for you in that. But I got a chance to read about his life story, and it is nothing short of miraculous. He titled it something about being a hero's journey. And any of you who have followed the podcast for any length of time, you guys know I talk about the Joseph Campbell story, and I talk about our own hero's journey and the fact that sometimes we get frustrated about all the challenging things that happen in our life. But why do they happen? Because there are lessons to be learned. And sometimes people run away from those lessons, and they hope, wish, and pray that they're going to go away, and they go into their addictions, and they go into their short-term gratifications. And then voila, 10, 15, 20, 30 years later, guess what? The problem is still there. When you go through that hero's journey, you realize, hey, instead of running away from these challenges, I'm going to run toward them. And I'm going to find out what it is that I need to learn proactively instead of reactively, because a lot of times people learn their lesson when they hit rock bottom, or they hit the rock bottom. And then they go, wow, I guess I have to adjust my situation right now. And this gentleman went through a lot of different things, a lot of different personality situations, and battling addiction. So please help me in welcoming to the Raw Unscripted show, Mr. Richard Kaufman. What's up, Richard? How's it going, man?
What's up, my brother? Hey, and you know, I was thinking about when you were talking, you know, how the Aerosmith guys, they were called the Toxic Twins. And I think we're the Kronk and his brothers, because we're both going through the same shit right now. So, but we're still here. We're still showing up. We're still putting in the work. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah, man. I mean, that's why when my coach asked me, some 4 years ago, and we were talking about my branding. She goes, "Why are you still here? After being a homeless 7th grade dropout, living in the backseat of a station wagon, having all those experiences, trying to commit suicide twice, why are you still here?" And I paused for about a minute and I thought about 20 different things. And then I narrowed those down, and then I narrowed those down. And I said, you know what? Honestly, it's going to sound stupid, but I never stopped and said I never gave myself excuses. And she goes, exactly. She goes, that's why you're the no excuses coach. And that's when I branded myself, and I really kind of took ownership of that moniker, if you will, because I don't allow people to have excuses. I mean, sure, there can be reasons and there can be opportunities within an explanation, but to say I don't have time, or I don't know how, or I don't have the money is bullshit. It's just about a matter of finding resources. So my question to you, Richard, tonight, and given we're going to kind of do a deep dive on your life and talk about what it is that we can inspire other people to do with their lives, what do you want most for people listening to this show to walk away knowing and believing in their heart about their own personal experience?
That nobody's coming to save you, and that you're the author of your own life. You know, it doesn't matter who wrote the first chapter, but you're the one that's writing the last chapter. So, and that's why I wear this shirt that says, "Today I decide to be a victim or a victor." So anybody that's listening, you guys decide, am I going to be a victim of my past or a victor of my present and my future?
I love that, Richard. And I say that often, very often. It's like you get to choose, you got to have two choices. You can be right, or you can be happy. You can be a victim or a victor. You can either accept it or change it. I try to distill things down into it's either this or that, right? I try to keep it simple so nobody can kind of veer off the ledge and go, well, you know, what about this? It's like, no, you're either a victim of your situation or you're a victor. And in order to be a victor, what do people need to do in their lives to be able to change from being that victim to being that victor?
They got to find out, they got to realize what the problem is to begin with. I'm in recovery, I'll be hitting 36 years on January 1st. And the first thing they tell you that you got to know what your problem is before you can get a solution. And unfortunately, like this show, it's, you got to be raw and you have to be brutally honest to find, you know, to figure out, why am I here? Why am I stuck? How do I unfuck myself? But in order to unfuck yourself, you have to realize how you're fucked.
Right. I agree. And it totally, I distill it down into three things. I call it the AAA effect, not the automobile club of whatever it is. But I talk about, it's got to be, you have to have awareness, right? I'm aware that I'm an alcoholic. I'm aware that I'm a shopaholic. I'm aware that I'm avoiding my problems. I'm aware that I'm in a marriage that I am not happy with. Number one, awareness. Number two, acceptance. And it's not accepting and saying it's my fault, but it's acceptance. It is what it is. I tell people that's one of those 5 powerful words. It is what it is. I'm in this marriage. I'm in this dead end job. I'm in whatever. I'm in the financial ruins. I'm in whatever it is. I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to ignore it, but I'm going to accept it. And then the third thing is super critical, as you know, is taking that action. And so many people don't take the action. They may be aware of the situation. They may try to push it away, hope, wish, and pray that it goes away. But talk to us about your journey, because I got a chance to read it and I won't give it away. But in your own words, talk about how you were a victim, how you were, I love it in the book. You talk about it multiple times, so I can say it out loud. You're a self-proclaimed asshole. Talk to us about that journey of who you were and how you got there.
Well, we could just start from the beginning, and then we can work up if you like. My father left when I was 3 months old, and my mother was an addict. My stepfather was an addict. So I was on my own most of the time. Like we talked about on my show, you know, from the ages of like 7 on, I was on my own. And I had my first drink at 13. My first drink at 11. I'm a full-blown alcoholic by the age of 13. I got thrown out of school for hitting a teacher in the head with a desk.
With a desk?
A desk.
Whoa.
Desk.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah. And then I joined the military. And at 17, the day I turned 17, I shipped. And that's when I became an alcoholic. And then I found drugs. So I became a drug addict and an alcoholic. And I'm just going to tell you this way, and then we can just go through it. And then we could pop back. I got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict and alcoholic at the age of 19. I almost got locked up for 5 years for grand larceny for robbing a police officer. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But he gave me a break. He said, Rich, you can either go to jail at 19 and be somebody's bitch, or you can go to AA for 90 meetings in 90 days. I hit 300 in a row. I haven't had a drink since January 1st, 1989.
Wow.
Then I got back in the military, which is unheard of. Was about to be thrown out again just for being an asshole, because I was an asshole. But because of what happened on exactly at 8:48 on September 11th, 2001, changed my whole life and my trajectory. In the military, I became Soldier of the Year, a non-commissioned officer. I finished 23 years in the military. I got hurt on duty, and I lost my vision, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm 60% blind now. That's why I got to wear these Mr. Magoo glasses. And they medically discharged me on Labor Day 2012. That was the day that I attempted suicide. That's not in my book at all. That's the day I attempted suicide. But my 6-month-old daughter saved my life that day. And then that's from that moment on, Labor Day 2012 is when I dedicated my life to helping people that are like me, trying to find a mission again in life. So wherever you want to go, now we can go.
David Libby just commented, wow. And I agree, David. And thank you for joining us. Yes, that is a wow story. I always make sure that everybody who comes on this show is as vetted before they come on the show. Robert says the same thing. Wow. And I always believe that when there's a one-word response to what you just shared, I think that's more powerful than a sentence, because people are just basically left speechless with what it is that you just shared. And I want to ask you a unique question. What do you think you were trying to prove in being that asshole? Because in the book you mention it, and you mention it here. What do you think, like looking back, was it your dad leaving? Was it your mom being an addict? What do you think caused you to have that chip on your shoulder and to try to drive people away? If that's what you were doing, that's essentially what I'm asking. What were you trying to do? And what do you think your beliefs were at that point?
Well, because I believe that since I got the short end of the stick, that the world owed me everything. And back then I was 143 pounds. I was shredded. I was good looking. So, I had the world by the balls, and I figured I was the best thing since sliced bread. But in reality, I was just being an asshole and realizing that, I figured if I drive people away by being an asshole, that means I don't have to be vulnerable and make real friends. I don't have, this way, I'll just let people run away from me. This way I don't have to show them that, hey, I'm really lonely. I'm not this guy. I'm not Rick. I'm Richard, but that's how I put it out, that I'm Rick the Almighty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what do you, when you think back on the people that you hurt, and I think you were married once or twice before your current relationship, or was it once before? So
twice.
So you're on your third marriage right now, right?
I had 2 practice marriages. Yes.
Okay. So when you look back, and I know that you talk about some people in your life that were mentors to you that you took for granted, what would you say to those people now? Do those people know you now? Were you able to apologize? Talk to us about that forgiveness journey, because I know that a lot of people go through challenges, and then on the other side, there's that regret of how they treated other people. Talk to us about that for yourself.
Well, something that I teach my coaching clients, I teach them the 3 pillars of forgiveness. First, you have to literally ask people that you've hurt if they're still alive. And if they're not, we can have other ways of dealing with that. Ask them for your forgiveness. Ask them for their forgiveness. Second of all, you have to forgive others that hurt you. And then the last thing is you have to forgive yourself. So since I've been sober 36 years, I go through the 12 steps one a month. So I've been asking people that for forgiveness the last 36 years. And whether they say it's okay or I forgive you, that's none of my business. As long as I make the effort to say, hey, I'm sorry for being an asshole. I'm not that guy anymore. Just watch me now. You know what I mean? So for me, even if me and my wife argue about something stupid and I get mad, I'll storm out of the house or whatever. And I'll come back and say, hey, I'm sorry. I was being an asshole and I apologize. And this way, if you do that every day, you don't have that stuff lingering over you and hanging over you. If you just ask for forgiveness, you people you hurt, because hurt people.
Yeah.
And we're all hurt. And we all remember, you are the villain in somebody else's story. So sometimes you just have to say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Just know I'm not that way anymore. And if I can do anything ever to help pay it back, I will. And that's what I do.
So who in your life did you want forgiveness from that perhaps you didn't get it? Because sometimes people still see us for the person that we were, no matter how much we change. I know I've coached a lot of people through that. I know for a while I was still seen as that party animal Chris, that, the Chris that does stupid shit. And it took me a while to overcome that persona, if you will, because there had been so many negative situations that had happened with that. I know it's taken some time, and I know there's still certain individuals out there who I don't associate with anymore because I wish them well, but I know still to this day, they would probably still see me as that person, even though I haven't been that person in 20 years.
Honestly, me, because sometimes I'll have a thought and I'll be like, man, you were such an asshole, and then I think, okay, Rich, that's not you anymore. You don't live in that house anymore. So who cares if it gets robbed? That's not you. So, but pretty much myself is the one that my harshest critic.
And so how do you find that? And thank you for sharing that, because I think that's super important. I know in my journey, I've never gone through the 12 steps program, but I've sought out therapy, traditional therapy and medicinal therapy and things of that nature. And I know that sometimes could be the hardest act that we need to do, is to be able to say, hey, I forgive you, Chris. You did some stupid shit. You fucked up. You hurt some people. You left a negative impression, but that's who you were then. And because you got to experience those situations, it helped you become the man that you are today. So for me, I process it as though I'm grateful for those negative experiences, for they shaped me to be the man I am today. I chose to sit there and say, okay, and listen, I've reached that point where I'm not going to continue going down that path. I'm going to do what it is I need to do to correct that and to make amends and to change who it is that I am. And through that process, I've been able to find a word called pride. I've been able to be proud of the things I've accomplished, irrespective of the master's degree and all that other stuff, is the fact that I've switched who I was. And not that I was a bad person, but I was just a big party animal and, did stupid shit and, caused people some angst and whatnot. But now on the other side of it, I'm able to, like that hero's journey process, I'm able to see my journey in a different light, because now I'm grateful for those experiences. Would you say that you see that the same way, or do you see it a little bit different?
Well, before I had a talk with Ed Milet on the phone, and he told me that
you got to tell me about that too.
And then he told me, Rich, nothing has ever happened to you. It's all happened for you.
Yep.
And everything is a teachable moment. So you do not have PTSD. You have post-traumatic growth.
Yep.
So ever since he said that, that's when my whole life changed, because that's when I started thinking, okay, that, whatever happened to me as a child or whatever, that happened to me so I can help somebody else go through it.
Yep.
So now I look at it as a superpower instead of something negative.
Mm-hmm. So before I tell you something, remind me, I don't know if we talked about it before, but how did you get a chance to talk to Ed Milet? Ed Milet, for people who are listening and don't know the personal growth field, there's very few people that I follow that I respect. And Ed Milet is one of those people. I listen to his podcast. I follow him. I've made it a personal goal of mine to interview him and to also be on his show one day. So how did you get a chance to talk to him?
Actually, a couple years ago, he had it where if you went on Instagram and you posted something,
Oh yeah,
he
you
would
commented
invite
on this post. You're one of the first few people.
a bunch of my friends tagged me in it, and this was about a week before I lost my vision. He invited me to fly down to South Carolina, hang out with him for the weekend. But then I lost my vision a week before the event, so I couldn't fly. So he sent me like a 50-pound box of swag, and he called me on the phone. He's like, "Hey, offer's open when you get your eyesight back. I want you to come back down."
Wow.
And that's when I actually got to sit and talk with him on the phone. And we talked about his dad's overcoming alcoholism.
Right.
And we talked about stuff like that. So, you know, I was always struggling with PTSD until that moment when a light bulb went off, and it was post-traumatic growth, and that nothing ever happens to you. It all happens for you, and everything is a teachable moment.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, what we're talking about, Richard, for people who are listening and watching, is the fact that we changed our perspective. It's not, people are always looking for the big aha and like the big shift, but it's progressively, can I see things a little bit different? Can I sit there and I look at the things that happen for me, right? And so oftentimes I think things happen to us. I've said that sentence out loud hundreds and hundreds of times, and it still blows my mind to this day that people that don't know that go, holy shit, I never thought of it that way. Right.
Yeah.
Because people ask me on podcasts, like, one of the questions I used to get, I don't get it as much anymore, but like, don't you wish you had a normal childhood? What type of person do you think you would be today if you had a normal childhood? And I'm like, this may sound crazy. I said, but I'm at a point in my life where at 13 years old, I was in the 7th grade. Had I not become homeless, I think my life would have turned out really fucked up, because I started becoming a bully. I started smoking pot. I started smoking cigarettes. I started drinking. And so had I not become homeless, I might have gone down a really bad path and might have wound up, expelled from school and all these different things. So now I'm grateful for those experiences, because I got to get to a point at 17 years old where I decided I'm either going to get out of the situation in a cop car, I'm going to get out of the situation in a pine box, or I'm going to personally have to get my shit together. I'm going to have to leave my mother in a very tough situation, and I'm going to have to fucking take care of myself and take care of my life instead of trying to take care of her, hoping that one day she becomes Mrs. Brady or Mrs. Cunningham, which was my thing, is like, why can't you be like this person? Why can't you be like that person? And when I realized that my mother did the best she could with what she had and literally almost gave me up for an adoption, I found gratitude in the fact that I was homeless. I found gratitude in the fact that I had to dig through dumpsters for cans and bottles and all sorts of stuff for us to survive every day. And because I found that gratitude, and because I got my shit together, I was able to go back to school, get my GED. And then the same year I got to enroll in a community college where I got my associate's degree. And then I spent 12 years getting my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. By the time I was 31, the same year I bought my first house. And so looking back at it, I'm able to say, wow, I'm grateful for all those things. And that's what we invite everybody who is listening tonight, is have gratitude for those challenges. Have gratitude. I mean, there's some fucked up things that have happened in people's lives. And I'm not saying woohoo, celebrate the fact that you were molested, but where you're at now is your choice and what it is that you choose to believe, right? I mean, what would you say to somebody who's processing this right now, Richard, and going, well, that's nice for you guys, but I went through X, Y, and Z?
Well, we all go through shit. Whether you're the CEO or the janitor, we're all going through the same shit, and even if you just Google whatever you're going through, there's somebody that's uber successful that went through the same exact shit that you went through. Like for me, John Lee Dumas.
Oh yeah, I know.
Actually wrote the whole back cover of my book. My mentor, people know him as the Entrepreneur on Fire guy, but people don't know him as the tank platoon commander that lost the tank crew in Iraq and almost took his own life because of depression and anxiety. So, a lot of people just have to, realize no matter who you are, whether it's you, me, Patrick Bet David, Robert Kiyosaki, all these guys, JLD, they all gone through shit. Tony Robbins, he's all gone through stuff.
Yep.
So let's find somebody that's gone through what you've gone through and it's crushed it, and then find out how they did it, and then just work backwards from that point.
Yeah, everything is you can duplicate everything. I mean, like I think it's who is it? I'm trying to remember now. I don't know if it was Tony Robbins, but somebody said success leaves clues. Yes. And like exactly to your point, Tony Robbins was homeless. That's why he feeds, I think he's now up to 1 billion people. Like his organization, what is it called? I'm fucking drawing a blank. One of the biggest food donation, feeding shit, I'm gonna screw it up. Anyways, I'll put it in the show notes because now I'm drawing a blank on it right now. I could see the logo, but I can't see the fucking name. But I want to go back to something that we were talking about before, and I think it's important also when you were talking about forgiveness and an apology. I find, and I love your 3 pillars on talking about that. I learned from geez, I'm fucking drawing blanks here. It'll come to me in a second, but Randy Pausch, the last lecture, that's what it was. So if nobody is, have you heard of Randy Pausch?
Yep.
The last lecture. Okay. Yep. Carnegie Mellon University. And in that he talks about, in his book, which is phenomenal, he talks about the apology has 3 parts. And I always tell this to people because it's massively important. I'm sorry. It was my fault. The 3rd part, which is the huge part, what can I do to make it better? Yep. So oftentimes we go, I'm sorry I was an asshole. I'm sorry I broke that. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And then can we move on now? And it's like, it's a half-assed apology. And I have found in my personal life, when I've wronged friends or coworkers or whoever it is, when I walk up to them and I look them in the eyes, I'm like, listen, I need to tell you something straight from my heart. And I tell them straight into their eyes, I'm sorry. I am sorry. And then I say what I'm sorry for. I am sorry I did this. I'm sorry that you felt betrayed. I'm sorry that I betrayed. Whatever it might be, I try to get as specific and as granular as possible so that person knows that I understand what it is that I did. Number 1, it was my fault. This had nothing to do with you. I don't want you to take any blame. I don't want you to think that, I'm not going to use this as an example. I slept around. I don't want you to think that it's because you're not attractive, blah, blah, blah. I let that person know that it was my fault. And I give them examples of how it was my fault, how I made the wrong choice, how I could have done better, what I would have done in a different situation. And then the 3rd part, which is massively important, is what can I do to make it better? And looking them in the eyes. Is there anything I could do to make this better? And oftentimes there's not. Oftentimes the first 2 parts of the apology are enough for people to go, wow, I didn't expect that. Wow, I've never gotten an apology so deep and so sincere as this one that you just gave, Christopher. Unfortunately, I haven't had to apologize for a lot of things in my life. I mean, a fair amount, but not an insane amount. But through those processes and listening to Randy's lecture and learning about that, that is so massively important because on the other end of that, when we get forgiveness from that person, there's a part of us that gets to heal also. Because, oftentimes in ourselves, we're like, okay, well, that person may have forgiven me, but I still feel like a dick for having done it. But when we get that solid connection with that apology, it's pretty incredible how we can start to heal and that we no longer associate ourselves with that guilt and that shame. Talk to us about something in your journey where you have felt guilt and shame and how you look at it now. And if there's still something that you haven't processed, perhaps. Yes, Robert, Feeding America. Thank you. I knew it was feeding something. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Probably past relationships. And this is being completely honest and real and vulnerable.
Thank you.
I've never had a bad woman in my life. It's always been me that's been the asshole. So, and that's why I try to be the best husband as I can be now, because I learned my lesson. And I learned, to be a better husband. I learned to be. I learned the love languages. I learned my wife's love language. I've learned how to be a better father, a better husband, a better husband. And like Tim McGraw says, I strive to be humble and kind. So for me, I think it would have to be past relationships because they were just victims. And I was the abuser, where now, every day I wake up and I treat my wife the way she deserves to be treated. I think I'm kind of giving back to the world a little bit by doing the right thing every day because time takes time, guys. You don't get 36 years clean without being 36 years clean. So time takes time. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's true. And I just want to capture a couple of these comments. We got thank you guys all for joining us tonight. We got Andrew Rimkus in the house. I'll make sure my cat doesn't sit on my keyboard. He says here, totally had to go to the hole to dig it out with all in life. Hear you, man. Hear you. Appreciate that. He also says here, Andrew says, willingness and humility come by total humiliation and revelation. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, it comes about that again, that awareness. Andrew says sorry goes hand in hand with thank you. True. And Andrew also says here, sounds like AA share better leads to love. Yes. True. I mean, and really that's what we're talking about, is that self-love, because oftentimes, again, we're that asshole or we're that addict or we're something because we don't have love for ourselves. And so in a either overt way or a subvert way, we self-sabotage ourselves and our happiness because we're that asshole. We don't necessarily believe we deserve great things in our life. And I found that out personally during COVID. I gave out a couple of 100 coaching sessions as my way of helping people who were stuck at home. And I just started doing it. I just was going on, I was doing Facebook lives all the time. I was doing it on my show. I was going live with other people, and I'd be like, hey, if you're hearing this if you're within the words of my voice and you're challenged right now, reach out to me and I'll give you a coaching session. And about the 10th or 15th one, I can't remember what it was pretty early on. I heard this little whisper, and I've learned in my life to listen to that whisper and not shoo it away and go, that's bullshit. I've got all the right answers, because I've learned that could be a spiritual guide, or that could be our true inner sense that's trying to speak wisdom to us. And I heard this inner voice say, Chris, ask them this question. It's a yes or no question. And ask them if they love themselves. And in my brain, I'm having this conversation while I'm talking to the person, on a Zoom like this. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But I heard it again, and it was like, ask them. And so I would just go, okay, Richard, I'm going to ask you a yes or no question. I don't want you to think too much about it. Do you love yourself? Yes or no? And I was shocked at how many people stopped and went, well, yeah, I think so. Well, I guess so. For the most part, I heard all these different things, probably maybe 10, 15%, 20%. I didn't take the actual numbers, but it was a small percentage of people said, yeah, of course I do. Why? And I could tell by the way they responded to me that I believed them. And I could tell by the way the conversation was going that they were good people. They were just, dealing with a very unique situation. But a large majority stumbled and said, yeah, I think for the most part, and da-da-da-da. And I started to realize, for me, I'm always trying to go the deepest part and get to the root of what is bothering people and what's troubling people. And I found that just simply loving ourselves, accepting ourselves for who we are, and realizing that there have been, quote unquote, mistakes or challenges in our life. But if we do shift that perspective, like you and I have in our journey, and the people that are watching this right now, that there's some pretty incredible things that can happen on the other side of that. What would you say to somebody who is challenged with loving themselves or accepting themselves, where they're at right now as they're listening to this conversation?
I always say to be the person that you looked up to when you were a child, or that you wanted to have when you were a child. Mm-hmm. Like I had one of my friends, Brian Bogert, was on my show, and we're talking about my daughter. She was 10 at the time. And she says, that 10-year-old girl is you when you were 10. Be the man that you would want to be in front of you at that age. And that just blew my mind. I was like, okay. Because a lot of times you're like, well, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. Well, who would you have wanted to be your father when you were 10 years old? So for me, that's something that I would really look at, to be the man that you would want to be. And if you have to do it, it's something that I did. I wrote my own obituary. And I keep it in my wallet wherever I go. So in it says, I'm a loving father. I'm a loving husband. I'm an author and all this good stuff. So if I'm not living up to what's in that obituary, then there's an issue. So maybe something like that might help with writing your own obituary and becoming that person that you write about.
Dude, you and I share a lot of philosophies in life. That is one of the things that I did when I was thinking back on my life, when we were talking about earlier, when I was like, okay, people are going to remember me this way, even though I've changed. And it was in 2008. I was at a funeral for one of my coworkers, and I knew her, but I didn't know her. But anytime I'm invited to a funeral, I always go because I feel like that's God's way of telling me that there's something I need to learn, or I'm gonna gain a perspective out of this. Because as we get older, obviously death starts to creep into our mind a little bit more. And I was sitting at the back of this church, and I thought about it. All of a sudden, it dawned on me. I heard the little whisper, and I asked myself the question, Chris, if you died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And I sat there as I'm watching my good friend Dave Riley get up there and blubbering and talking about what a beautiful person Anne was and all the different things she made a difference in the world with, in addition to working for a scuba diving company. And I thought 10 or 15 people would show up, and they would bring a case of Miller Genuine Draft and bottles of Jack Daniels, and they would play Motley Crue and Bon Jovi records, and they would talk about all the stupid shit Chris did. This was in 2008. Oh, remember that time Chris passed out and we stacked food on his head? Remember that time Chris was dating 3 girls and they all showed up at his apartment because the guy was trying to fucking, be the man's man? Remember that time that he fucking drove drunk and busted his rim? Remember that time? And then they would get to the end and go, oh yeah, he was a 7th grade homeless dropout that wrote a book that changed the world. And quite honestly, Richard, when I was driving home, that stuck with me. Was like, is that acceptable? Because my friend Bob Donnell, who I've talked about on Facebook recently, who's had a medical emergency and nearly almost died, he's still trying to fight with to keep himself alive. But he said something powerful. He said, when it becomes acceptable, it becomes inevitable. And so I thought about it, and I drove home. It was about an hour and 30-minute drive home, and it was still bugging me. And I thought, even though my life was successful, even on paper, I was making $100,000 plus a year. I was coaching, I was speaking, I was traveling. I was in the process of writing my first book, which I have not yet published because I was told to publish my memoir first. And then I went home and I did exactly what you just said. Is I wrote my eulogy. It was bugging me. I was sitting in my office and I took pen to paper and I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here today to celebrate the life of Christopher Rausch. And I proceeded to write, and I have one of those gifts where I could just write. And for the most part, I don't need to edit it. It's pretty good the way I write it. And so I got to the end of it. I went to my kitchen, got a glass of water, came back, and I pushed it to the side. And I said, okay, now I'm going to get back to what I really want to do. I did the thing that I think I should do. I did it. And then I stopped and I'm like, no, Chris, you need to read it. And I'm sure it's pretty good, but I read it and I started reading it. And then I said, you know what, Chris, you have to read it out loud. And so I swear to God, I picked up the yellow pad of paper, exactly like this. I've been a yellow pad guy for decades. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to celebrate the life of Christopher Rausch. He was a blah, 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 blah. And I'm reading it. I'm like, oh yeah, sounds good. Yep. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I didn't talk about my charger. I was always saying that, one of my goals was to have my charger in Hot Rod magazine. And as I'm reading and I'm talking about having this conversation in my brain, and then all of a sudden I get to the middle part and I start crying. And I'm not boo-hooing, but I just start tears coming. I shut up and I'm just like, holy crap. And I got done and I got really sad for a second and I got happy. And I realized that the crux of my eulogy, Richard, is that Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked for which that mattered, and he will left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. And because I wrote that in 2008, ever since, every day, nearly every single day, I'm cognizant of, have I fought for what's right and what's fair today? Have I risked for which that mattered? Have I, most importantly, have I left this earth a better place for who I am and what I do? And so every single day, whether it's this podcast, whether it's making a grocery person laugh, whether it's stopping and asking somebody how they're doing and listening, whatever it might be, so that if tomorrow is my last day, that people, like if my wife says, I wonder who was the last person on his show, and they reach out to you and say, Richard, how was Chris? He was riffing. He was making the world a better place. All right, cool. Because I did that, that's one of the things I have all my coaching clients do. So everybody who's listening, this is a freebie. Write your eulogy and then distill it down to a couple of sentences so that you're able to think, okay, I'm having a shitty day. I'm not having a great day. Have I done something to create the legacy that I'm going to be proud of? Again, like you said before, thinking about that person and working backwards, what it is that they did. What was the last thing they could do? I talk about it as acting as if. I'm going to act as if I'm Dana Stewart, who was a dear mentor of mine. I'm going to act as I'm Bill White, who I tattooed, "You're only limited by the parameters of your own mind" on my arm, because that's what he said to me at 17 years old. Chris, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. This has been a powerful conversation, Richard. We got a little bit of time left. I want to switch gears. You are the host of Vertical Momentum podcast. In your journeys, and you said you've done something like 1,300 podcasts. In talking to people like myself and other people in this world, what are some common attributes in life of people who have been through shit and who now are successful? What would you say are like the top 3 attributes or qualities of people who got on the other side of the challenges that they faced?
All right. So number 3 would be humble, to be humble. Number 2 would to be teachable. And the number 1 thing would be is to never quit, because the only time that you actually lose is when you quit. And I've had Navy SEALs, Delta, you name it, and most people that were special ops, they said that they were just too dumb to quit. And that's my next book that I'm going to be writing, is Too Dumb to Quit. Is, as long as you don't quit and you keep trying, then you'll always have a chance to win. But if you quit, then you'll never get a chance to win.
It's true. And I love those. And that's why one of the reasons why my wristbands that I sell say unstoppable. Because again, like we said earlier in the broadcast, if you guys are just joining us, go back and check out the beginning. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Is my coach said, "Why are you still here?" And I said, "I never stopped, and I never gave myself excuses." And that's totally within reason for what it is that we can accomplish, because so many times people give up, or they go to the side of the road and they wait for somebody else to come and save them, like you said at the top of the show as well. Since you've interviewed so many people and you've talked to so many people and you've had your own journey, what are a couple of powerful questions that we can ask ourselves to inspire that perspective shift that we need, right? I think about it in terms, I think about in terms like, will I be happy with this choice tomorrow? Like, if we really truly ask ourselves in that moment, will I be happy with this choice or this decision tomorrow? I'm about to eat something that's going to go against my health plan. I'm about to drink something that's going to probably make me be stupid. I'm going to chase after this girl when I'm married, whatever it might be. Will I be happy with this choice tomorrow? I think of that as a powerful question. What are some questions that you think in your life can help people shift their trajectory?
Well, like my brother Dean says, ask yourself the 7 whys. Figure out, why. If you have anything that you want to try to figure out, whether it's business, whether it's relationship, ask yourself why. Then ask yourself why another time, all the way you get to number 7. Then that's pretty much going to be the real answer.
Yeah.
And you figure out your why, like my old podcast is called Success. Your why powers your how. So if you can figure out your why, then life becomes so much easier, because you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. So I think the 7 whys, like Dean talks about, Graziosi talks about, I think if you can figure the 7 whys out, you can figure out anything in this world.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I tell people all the time, my cat is like wanting my attention really badly. I tell people, like, when you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And that's why I go back to that eulogy statement. And I'm so bought onto that, because it's helped me tremendously in my life. Is like, okay, what's my why? Right? When we have that big picture, why we want to be remembered, or who we want to be remembered for. And if we catch ourselves in those moments, not living up to that opportunity, not even the expectation, but the opportunity to have that greatness in our life, it's pretty incredible. And to your point, being able to drill down, because so oftentimes we look at things in terms of symptoms or in terms of surface layer stuff. But what you're saying, Richard, is to dig deeper and to dig deeper. And when you get to that deeper part, you get to the root. And when you get to the root, that's when you get that clarity. And that's when you can really simplify things in terms of what our perspective is about that. Like we've been talking about this whole entire conversation, is when we can shift our perspective just a little bit and change those actions and change what it is that we're doing and change the trajectory little by little. Like I think Andrew said earlier, step by step, right? It's not going to be overnight. And I hear everybody say it every fucking day, literally, Chris, it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. I don't want to do it. And I'd sit there and I say, okay, do you want the result? Yes. Okay. How long did it take you to get to this spot? It took me 20 years. It took me 10 years. It took me 5. Okay. How about we give it at least half of that time on the other side of things to make it right? So if it took you 10 years to get in the situation, what would your life look like in 5 years? Are you going to live 5 more years? Chances are you are, if you take care of yourself and you make some right decisions. So on the other side of this challenge and all this ambiguity and all this, whatever it is, the strife, how different would you feel if you look forward in your life 3 to 5 years and go, wow, I am glad that I went through that journey. I'm glad I went through that heartache. I'm glad that, you know, it was that challenge there, because now I have so much more gratitude. I have so much more gratitude for where I'm at now. And that's the bull. That's the bull in the china shop of life, is when we can find gratitude in the simplest things and the joy in those things. It's pretty incredible how fulfilled our life could be. Would you agree?
I agree, but I think you have to choose your heart. You know, choose your heart. It's hard being fat, broke, busted, and disgusted. It's hard to be.
That sounds like a country song.
You know, it's hard to be that, or it's hard to be successful. So just pick your heart. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's important. Somebody told me that yesterday, was pick your heart. You can either be broke, busted, and disgusted, or you can work hard, hustle, and grind. They're both going to be hard. Just one's going to be beneficial. The other one is not going to be beneficial. So just pick your heart wisely.
It's true. It's true. Man, what did it, broke, busted, and disgusted?
Yeah.
If I wrote country music, I would write a song about that. Sounds fucking, if you put a banjo to that, that would be a #1 hit. No offense to my country music fans out there. I know that Nancy's watching and she's going to be doing some, I can't remember the name of the dance we're going to be doing. But anyways, Richard, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I know that people are going to get and have gotten powerful insights into this. Where can they continue the conversation with you? Where can they catch your podcast? Tell them all things, Richard.
They can go to verticalmomentumpodcast.com, or we're on the first 8 pages of Google. So if you just Google Vertical Momentum Podcast, we're on 35 different platforms. You can direct message me on any platform. It's always me. There's no VA. So if you, I'm offering my book, my top selling book that you've gotten. It's free for anybody that wants it. Just reach out to Christopher and send me your email and I'll send it to you. Also, if you want an hour coaching call, whether you're struggling with anything, health, fitness, addiction, financial related, you get an hour of my time, no questions asked, just 2 friends sitting down to a cup of coffee. I'm just trying to pay it forward, and I'm not trying to, it's all free. I'm not selling anything. So if you guys want some help, like I got help, I'm here for you.
Dude, that is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, for people who are listening on the podcast, Vertical Momentum Podcast, it is spelled how it sounds. And if you have any challenges, you can go into the show notes and we'll make sure that link is in there as well. Richard, this has been a gift to me to be able to share this time with you, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I will get messages in the next couple of weeks of people saying, wow, that conversation has really shifted me. It's exactly what I needed to hear at this moment. And what a beautiful gift we can give somebody during the holidays, is the gift of shifting their perspective and increasing their self-confidence, so that they too, you guys listening, here's the ask, like Richard just said, and I love that you said this, you get to pay it forward. That's how I started coaching. Is I said, I watched the movie Pay It Forward with Haley Joel Osment. I watched the same week, I watched Patch Adams with Robin Williams, and I got super inspired that I could take my story and make a difference in this world. And ever since then, God is my witness, every single day, in some way, some form, some fashion. It's my gift to pay it forward and help other people so that all together we can make this world a better place. And I believe it is truly a beautiful place, irregardless of what the news says. I don't follow the news. I don't watch politics, any of that bullshit. So Richard, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to close out the show, but don't go anywhere. Okay.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it, brother. You got it. And thank you guys to everybody here in the chat. From Ted. Oh, God, I didn't even realize this. I'm sorry, Ted. Ted was listening and watching. He says, "Hey, bro, how are you?" "I'm doing fabulous, my brother. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. Good to hear from you here. Hope everything's going better with your situation. I keep you in my thoughts and my prayers." Robert said here as well. He goes, "I certainly wouldn't have been able to do what I've done this year alone. I'm proud of you, man. You show up and you listen to these podcasts and you support these. Thank you. Thank you, David Libby, for being here. Appreciate you." He had commented back a while back. He said, "Good question. So true." That's what this show is all about. This show is about asking good questions and then asking yourself those questions and then being honest with yourself, right? When you think about it, so many times we lie to ourselves and we don't tell ourselves the absolute truth. Am I happy in this marriage? Yes or no? No, I'm not. Okay, what is it what I can do? Have I communicated to my spouse or my partner that I'm unhappy? No, they should know it. They should figure it out. I've given them clues. No, you need to speak out loud. Is it going to suck? Could you potentially get the answer you don't want? Yes. I am once divorced. I'm still great friends with my ex-wife. It's been over 30. I think we would have just celebrated our 35th anniversary. Every year on my anniversary, I still message her or she messages me and we just sit there and say, "Hey, I'm glad we're still friends." It wasn't meant to be, but yeah, I asked a tough question and I got a raw answer and that's what happens. Nellie's in the house from Hooked on Humanity. She says, "Hello all. I just got home. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you." Jacqueline Rose in the house, my Irish sister from another mister. She says, "I'm so proud of you, Christopher." Thank you, my dear. I am proud of you and thank you for ordering the wristbands. Jacqueline is a proud wearer of our Believe and No Excuses Unstoppable wristband. So thank you as well. David Libby here had commented. He goes, "What's a normal childhood? LOL." Yeah. I know a lot of people with normal childhoods are way more fucked up than I ever was. So I think there's something to be said for having challenges in our childhood for us to become the people that we're supposed to become. Andrew Rimkus, again, thank you so much again for being here. Appreciate it. It's been a while since I've seen you. He says, "Totally had to go to the hole and dig out with all of my life." I think we had covered that comment before, but thank you so much for being here. Let's see who else we got in the house. Andrew says, "Also look in your mirror," right? Go to the mirror and look into yourself, look into your eyes. For me, it was picking up a picture of myself when I was a kid. And I looked into that picture and I had a conversation with myself as that kid. And I said, "Listen, dude, you're going to go through a lot of fucked up shit in your life, but you're going to come out the other side with an amazing, blessed experience of life." So that's another thing you guys can do is pick up a picture of yourself when you were a kid and talk to yourself. Nellie says, "Yes, the obituary idea is very helpful." Have you done it yet? You have been a follower of the show for many, many years, and I know that I have mentioned this more than once or 3,000 times. My friend Nancy and one of my coaching clients is in the house. She says, "Create your legacy that you are proud of. Today is the day you get to decide to kick ass and choose joy or live a life of regret. Write your eulogy today and decide if you are living your best life." Yes. Nancy has done that. Nancy has kicked ass this year. Get her book. It is pretty incredible. Choose Joy. I'm sitting here staring right at it. I can't get to it right now because my cord's not long enough. But thank you, Nancy, for being here. I appreciate you so much. Got Michael Duffy in the house. Michael, I'm not sure if I am remembering you, but welcome to the show. He commented #live, hand slaps, high five. So thank you, brother, for being here. Appreciate you. Robert says, "Thank you both." Yes. Nancy also comments here, "Do you want the results?" If you want the results, you got to make the dedication. I still do that. I'm looking at the next year, 2025, to get in probably the best shape of my life. I'm still in pretty good shape. I'm 55 years old. In case you guys didn't know, I sometimes tell people I'm 75 and they go, "Oh my God, you look really fucking good." But for the most part, people think I'm in my early 40s. So thank you for that. I hydrate, I moisturize, I work out, I drink my water, my gallon of water every single day at least. And I associate myself with beautiful people in the world like all you guys. Nellie says here, "I picked up the obituary idea way back when you introduced it years back." Well, you picked it up, but have you written it? All right, Nelly, there's your homework. Write it and then send it to me. You don't need to publicize it, but send it to me. I would love to read it because you have made an impact on my life. You have made an impact on lots of people's life with what it is that you do every single day and who you are every single day. So that's the take from this, guys. No matter where you're at or what you've been through, you get to decide where you go next. You get to make the next choice. You get to decide whether you're going to be a victim or a victor. You get to decide whether you're going to come back here next week and listen to another episode or go back and listen to one of the other 294 episodes. By the way, in the next 5 episodes, we're going to be celebrating episode number 300. I think I'm doing a solo show. So I'm going to be answering your questions and doing whatever it is I can do to continue to serve you. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/the Christopher Rausch. Sign up there, hit the like button, subscribe. I think I got 1,000 videos on there that can change your life, that will change your life. Go there and apply them, share them out, be the change that you bitch about, and be good to yourself and be good to other people. The world is struggling right now, and the best thing we can do is to be the best we could possibly be for each other. So with that, I will see you here next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.